communicated almost every day on the phone. So yes, I was comfortable enough to talk about hand-holding with somebody at that point.
And so the context of the letter, the statement that touching Jose made your skin crawl was this, because that's another thing I've been thinking about, hand-holding, because I think it's been many years since I've willingly held a man's hand, someone I actually wanted to touch.
Objecting on it, it's 2 years after that.
Oh,
I used to love holding hands when I was younger, but touching Jose made my skin crawl after the first 6 months with him.
As I've explained, there were times that Jose was, I would say, coming on to me, and it made me uncomfortable, and I was not in the mood for being touched at those times, so yes.
And that was before you even married him.
Don't remember saying that specifically, but since you read it, I suppose that's true. I was not big Jose, and I did not hold hands much after the first 6 months, yes. But I still loved him, and I still love him today.
Now, Michelle's your middle daughter, right?
She is my middle daughter.
How old was she when you murdered Jose?
I'm sorry?
sustained us to the characterization of Quinn.
How old was your daughter Michelle when you killed Jose?
Well, that was 2013, so Michelle would have been 19.
And she had a pretty bad attitude about him, as you testified to yesterday. Is that correct?
Well, I think ever since he had lied to her and told her that he was buying a house up in New York, ever since then they had had a real contentious relationship.
She didn't want to even talk to him, did she?
There were times that she did not want to talk to him, and there were times when she was very pleasant with him. And so there were times when we did do things together, especially like when we went to Puerto Rico or went to New York all together, yeah.
So as disrespectful and nasty as she was to him, he still took her to Puerto Rico on a family trip.
They were amicable with each other when we were all together most of the time, yes.
And Michelle had a boyfriend while you were all living at Schoolhouse Street, right?
Michelle, yes, she did.
And she had her own car.
She did have her own car, yes.
And she stayed out sometimes overnight at her boyfriend's house.
Yes, she did.
And she drank liquor.
I'm sure that she did, although when I asked her about it, she denied it.
She smoked dope.
She denied it every time I asked her about it.
Didn't you talk to her while you were in the jail and she visited and you told her to take it off of her Facebook because it would be hard for her to get a job later on?
That was my recommendation to my daughter. Having been a teacher, I know that everything you put on Facebook is public, and so I recommended that she take down anything referring to anything illegal.
She has a lot of the same issues you had when you were younger, doesn't she?
I do not believe that my daughter has ever been molested. I do not believe that my daughter has ever been raped. My daughter grew up in a recovering house, so I can't say that she necessarily has those same type of issues.
So you indicated that when you first got a call that the police were at your house, that you started calling your daughter, Michelle.
I started making several phone calls. Michelle had been the last thing that he had been talking about. He was coming for her. He was going to get her, so she was most on my mind at that point.
And so is that why you asked her, or that's why you told her that you had dumped his body somewhere where no one would find it?
I made up a lie. I lied to Michelle. I lied to Michelle. I lied to Michelle. And I believe that I said that yesterday. I told Michelle whatever I needed to tell her to get her to be quiet. Yes, I lied to Michelle.
The answer to that question is yes?
Yes,
You did say that you told her that you had dumped Jose's body where it would never be found.
Among the other lies, yes, I told Michelle that they would not find him.
And is that why you also asked her to come help you clean up all of Mr. Perez's blood out of the Jeep?
When she got home, I was cleaning. I did not ask her to come help me clean up. I was cleaning off where he had spit the blood on the dashboard. She came in and I was cleaning, and at that point I was exhausted, my body, I couldn't do it anymore, and I asked her to help me, and she said no.
You asked her to stop on the way home from where she was and buy new seat covers for the Jeep too.
Yes, I had mentioned yesterday there was blood on the passenger side seat on the corner where he had been sitting, and I asked her to get me seat covers.
Before you went out and killed Jose, did you ask Michelle for her taser, or did you just take it?
I don't remember Michelle and I having a conversation about her taser.
So you just took it?
I don't remember taking her taser.
So there was no taser involved in anything?
I did not have a taser anywhere near Jose.
And so that's why you felt it necessary to throw the taser out with all the other things like the knife box, the bloody clothes, and all of Jose's personal items?
I threw everything out, including Jose's GPS, just because that had been in the car and it had blood on it.
At the time that you went out on a drive with Jose, you knew that tasers could kill, stun guns?
I was thinking about what I was going to say to Jose. I wasn't thinking about stun guns at that time.
Well, you'd been looking it up online.
When I was still working at Garner, I had looked up tasers briefly. I had students that had had a lot of experience with the criminal justice system, and they had talked to me about different types of personal weapons that you could use for protection. So at some point, I did look up tasers. They had told me that there was an instance where somebody had died from a taser, and I Googled, can a taser kill someone? And once I got on that page, there were all kind of stories about that situation where people had died from a result of tasers. So that's the taser situation.
And your students were worried about whether tasers could kill someone with a heart condition like Jose had?
I had students who they had given me their probation officer's phone numbers instead of their parents' phone numbers. So this was a very new kind of experience for me, teaching in a high school like that. So they gave me a lot of information about, they spoke about weapons quite often.
Now, you said yesterday that you did not gain anything from Jose or from his death, and you never had any expectation of gaining anything.
No, there are no VA benefits payable unless the veteran dies of a service-connected disability. And that's something that we had known for quite a while, that if somebody does not die as a result of their disability, for example, if Jose had died from a heart attack, if he had died from his diabetes, then the spouse can potentially get something, but only if they're destitute. And so I knew that I would never, I never expected to get any benefits from the VA.
And you certainly wouldn't get any benefits from the VA or Social Security if you were divorced, would you?
Actually, Social Security, when Jose and I were looking at the Social Security information, it had said that the wife, a spouse of a disabled person in general, not just the VA, a spouse of a disabled person is entitled to a benefit if they don't get remarried. And as we started working with Diane Wilson and working with the Social Security to try to work that out, I said to him, your ex-wife is eligible for these benefits too because she's not married yet. And I said, why don't we tell Myrna that she can get this money? And he said he was not interested in doing that. But yes, there is a benefit that the family can get if the person is disabled through Social Security, but that again ends if they pass away.
And on September 4th, 2013, you wrote to your daughter, Michelle, that easy money was evil money. Is that correct?
Yes, my opinion is that...
Let me finish my
I'm
question.
sorry, dear. Apologize.
And you also wrote to her that the bottom line is that we can ask for forgiveness and then move on. I've had to do that here. I'm sure God pointed me to 1,000 good resources to get Jose to leave, but I kept saying I can do this on my own. 80 days later, I've asked for forgiveness and I am healed. So that's done. No more fast money. Moving on.
Fast money is definitely... I'm not sure what I was referring to in that instance. I had met a lot of young ladies who were in professions where the money came very quickly, and I'm sure I might have been referring to staying longer than I should have because of concerns about, I have to catch up just one more car payment before I go, just one more mortgage payment before before we leave. So I'm sure that that's what I was referring to. There was no money when this happened. There had been times when the money was so bad that I had to go to the food pantry off of Durant Road within the year before Jose passed away. So there was no money.
You told people that Mr. Perez was drinking and drugging because you found empty liquor bottles and empty pill bottles in the house, correct?
There were a lot of unexplained hydrocodone bottles surfacing here and there underneath his medicine cabinet in the bathroom.
And you told people that you thought he was cheating on you because you smelled another woman on him and you found empty condom wrappers in the house.
What I had actually found was something that I think is a male libido enhancer, something that you would buy in like a gas station. So I refer to it as like an over-the-counter Viagra type of thing. But I knew that he could not take those because of his heart. That's what he had told me. So I was very surprised. That was probably right around the time that I found that email to that Martha Hernandez. So that was just one of the last things that really got me kind of disgusted at that point.
You never confronted either one of your daughters about whether those liquor bottles were theirs, did you?
Rachel was so involved in her church at that point. She was going to the furnace pretty much every day at that point. I knew she was not drinking. Michelle, with all of the other issues that she had going on, that seemed like one of the least important things for me to be talking to her about.
So you just decided you knew that those liquor bottles were Jose's?
Well, there were, like I said, they were in his things in the garage. It was rum, which had been his drink of choice. He talked about rum all the time in Puerto Rico, living right next to a rum factory. So he was very fond of rum. And so I kind of put all that together.
Both of your older daughters were sexually active, weren't they? Had boyfriends.
Oh,
Yes, both of my daughters were sexually active.
And so if there were condom wrappers or some other sexual devices in the house, it could have belonged to your daughters or their boyfriends.
I found the pill thing in Jose's little sock basket. He had a sock basket in his bedroom on his shelf in the closet. Nobody came into our bedroom for any reason. The closet was in the master bath. So, and it was right there bunched up in his socks. So again, my assumption was that these were his.
And you kept that Facebook letter that you said was from Martha Hernandez, right?
I saved it. I titled it Evidence. I wanted to have something to be able to show him and say, now I have proof. So yes, I did
You
save
didn't
that.
keep the liquor bottles. You didn't keep the pill bottles, and you didn't keep the condom wrappers, did you?
Well, as a recovering alcoholic, first of all, I don't want to be around bottles. I don't want to be around pill bottles. I don't want to be around any type of alcohol, and my children have always respected that. I have asked them, whatever you are doing, do not do it in this house, and that's the way that they grew up. So that's been a policy with me for their entire lives. Don't disrespect me and bring it in the house. In terms of the pills that I found, the over-the-counter Viagra stuff that I call it, I threw it in the garbage. I felt it was disgusting and I didn't want to touch it.
Not evidence.
I'm sorry?
You didn't think it was evidence.
I was disgusted. I was shocked. Like I said, Jose had had this conversation with me about Viagra within the first week that we had started becoming intimate, and he had told me that he could not take anything like that because of his heart condition. So when I found that in the bedroom, I was absolutely shocked.
So everything about you is for your girls, right?
I'm sorry?
Everything about you is your devotion to your children.
I would say that I have, over the past 2 years, tried to become a little more balanced and have had to realize that I am a separate entity from my children. So codependency is something that I've struggled with my whole life. And yes, I have been too dependent on my children. I have put their needs before mine on many occasions. Same thing like I put my husband's needs before mine and my father's needs before mine. So that was definitely a pattern for me for many, many years. And I'm still trying to work on that with Al-Anon.
You taught your girls to be honest, hardworking, and ethical, right?
I hope that they saw that modeled in me. I don't think I actually had to teach that. I hope that's something that they saw modeled in me. Of course, I'm not perfect, though. I'm human and I'm perfect, and that's why we have things like forgiveness and stuff like that.
Moving on.
I'm sorry?
You're moving on.
I would like to think that I'm becoming a much healthier person. I have no idea what God has planned for me. I've been talking about a lot of religious vocations and things. I've been talking to a lot of people about getting on a different type of path. Not sure if I'm supposed to be a social worker, not sure if I'm supposed to be paralegal or something. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing, but I've had 2 years to think about what my future might look like, and there are a lot of possibilities, so.
You wrote to clergy and told them that you wanted to be a nun, right?
I had told them that if I could stay in my family and be able to be a nun at the same time, I would love to do that. I think that I have proven to myself that relationships have been very difficult for me. It's definitely not my strong suit. And I have felt at times that I love the Lord so much that I would be more than happy to just devote myself to Him entirely. But I would not do that if I couldn't still maintain being a mom to my children.
So on the 15th of June 2013, you lied to Jose to get him into the car to go with you, didn't you?
No, I asked him to come for a ride with me, and I asked him to go to the dollar store. I knew that I was asking him to leave, so I asked him to come for a ride with me, but I knew that I was asking him to leave, so I'm not sure how that
The
constitutes me
question
lying to
was, you
him.
lied to him, you told him you wanted to go to the dollar store to get him in the car, didn't you?
We did go to the dollar store.
Isn't that what you told Jose?
I told Jose I wanted to go to the dollar store, and we did go to the dollar store. I did not tell him I'm going to ask you for a divorce on the way so that he could be ready for that. I didn't think that that would make much sense to do.
And over the 5 years that you'd known him, he told you a lot of things that weren't true, correct?
Yes.
And that made you angry, didn't it?
Yes, it still makes me angry when I think about it. Doesn't mean I don't love him, but,
The sex wasn't satisfactory, and that made you angry too, didn't it?
no, that didn't make me
He
angry.
didn't make the car payments on time, and that made you angry, didn't it?
The fact that he lied about those things, yeah, that made me angry. It made me sad, too, that somebody would be sober that long and still lying about things. You know, that's one of the most important foundations of recovery, is being able to be honest.
He didn't pay the car insurance always on time, and that made you angry.
No, he lied about paying the car insurance, and that would definitely frustrate me.
He didn't pay for your beauty pageant bills on time, and that made you angry, didn't it?
I paid my pageant bills. That was something that we would do together, and I think what you're referring to is when he said he was going to go pay the pageant and bounce the check. And that put me in a position where I had to go back to the trophy people and work that out, and that was very uncomfortable. I had not had any experience with check bouncing in quite a while, so that was a very uncomfortable situation for me to be in again.
What I'm referring to is your letter that you wrote to Bonnie Henry that you entitled "All the Lies Jose Told Me," in which you wrote to her, "He told me he paid several bills, including pageant trophies, and he didn't. Reality, he had started writing bad checks."
That's exactly right. Yes, he had started writing bad checks, and that was going to affect my credit, his credit. And again, like I think I've said, that's a kind of chaos that when you're in recovery, your life is supposed to become very simple. That kind of chaos, bounce checks, lying like that, to me, that's drinking behavior, that's pre-recovery behavior. So for me to have to be dealing all of a sudden with lies again, it was just chaotic and very confusing, especially because I cared about him. And that's why I tried to say, well, maybe it's because of the Agent Orange. And that's when he said, I've been lying to my wife for 20 years. You have to give me a chance to undo those behaviors. So.
And your credit wasn't very good either, was it?
No, I had,
In fact, let me
oh, I'm
finish
sorry.
my question.
Sorry about that.
In fact, you came into the marriage with a $46,000 loan default, didn't you?
Yes, I believe I'm still in default from my student loan. And that was one of the things I was hoping to pay off when Chuck and I sold the house in Rollsville. I ended up putting, I believe I may have put, I want to say $6,000 towards it. But after paying off everything else, I didn't really have that entire amount. I felt that it would have been selfish of me for to take that amount of money and put it towards something personal like that. So, but I had been working with the collection people on that, and as a matter of fact, since I've been in jail, they wrote to my daughter while I was in jail, and they asked her, "What are you doing with this?" And she said, "My mother's not available right now, but that's something she wants to take care of." So I have tried to stay on top of that.
And that loan that you took out was a government loan for educational purposes. Was that for your undergraduate or your graduate?
No, my father paid for my education at Fordham University. So these were loans that I took out between 2000 and 2003 when I was trying to do graduate school. And what happened at that point was that when my father had that stroke and all of a sudden became disabled and incapacitated, I dropped out of grad school immediately at that point, not realizing there was a process that you actually had to go through to do paperwork and all that. So
you came into the marriage with a $46,000 debt.
yes, and I still have that debt today. Yes, that is a student loan debt. And when we went to see the financial counselors together about rebuilding credit, they said that's not one of the things that's most important to worry about right now. So that was something that, I figured we would pay off those repossessions that he had and his ex-wife's car and all that stuff. So those were going to be more crucial to getting the credit scores up.
And he didn't own a $1 million value farm in Puerto Rico like he told you, did he?
No, he had talked about owning a farm after he started talking about selling the property to buy the house in New York.
And that made you angry, didn't it?
When I found out that he had told everybody in my family and had involved an architect in New York and had involved a real estate lawyer, had involved a realtor, I was devastated for all those people that had been affected by that lie.
But
so
you weren't
what
angry?
it made me angry to be lied to like that, absolutely.
And
That's
he
a
told-
trust issue. And then to try to have sex with me after telling me these lies, that's a horrible situation.
And he didn't have a trust fund that he told you that he had, is that correct?
He had told me that he had a trust fund to pay off the house that he owned in Youngsville, and that the administrator of his trust fund was this man named Jesse, who we were getting bills from.
That's a
And
lot
it
more
t-
information than I've asked for.
Oh, sorry.
The answer only requires a yes or a no. Were you angry when you found out he didn't have the trust fund he told you he had?
I was angry that he lied about the trust fund.
And he told people that he had to take more medicines than he really did. That made you angry, didn't it?
Every lie that he told me, yes, it knocked my trust down and it knocked me out, yes.
I didn't ask about your trust. I asked if it made you angry.
Well, when I get angry, I get depressed. So I spent a lot of time in bed in a lot of depression from going through all those lies.
He told people that he had 13 stents in his heart, but it was really just 3. That made you angry too, didn't it?
Well, like I said, every time that he lied about something, I got angry, I got depressed, and I went to bed. So I spent a lot of time depressed in those last few years.
And the big lie that he told you was that he was dying of cancer, wasn't it?
That was, to me, one of the most heinous and unforgivable things is to say, I have cancer, because I know how many people's lives are affected by cancer. And I could not wrap my brain around somebody using cancer for whatever reason. He told people he was dying, and I never was able to get him to say, yes, I lied. He still denied it up until the last year we were together. He never admitted that he lied. So to me, it was one of the most bizarre things to use cancer. And again, I'm not sure even why he had ever said that in that meeting, but yeah.
And as devastating and terrible and awful a thing it was that he told you he was dying of cancer and he was not, you still married him.
I still married him, yes, and I believe that anybody can change, and I believe that everybody deserves another chance. I believe that everybody makes mistakes, and I was hoping that that was just a big mistake that he made, and he didn't know how much honesty meant to me and how much trust issues I had, especially having been raped. I do have a lot of trust issues. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt that he would change and work on those things. And he did seem very willing to work on those
The
things.
question was, knowing that he had lied to you about cancer, you still married him, yes or no?
Yes.
Now, you were angry about all those lies that he told, correct?
I don't know if angry is the right word. I think it was very depressing.
So you were
I-
depressed, so you wrote to Bonnie Henry and wrote her a 9-page letter listing every lie Jose told me because you were depressed?
Well, I'll tell you, the reason that I ended up in this situation is because I didn't tell anybody what was going on in my life. And that was very obvious to me within the first week or two of being alone in a jail cell without anybody else. And you sit there and reflect on what brought you to your current situation. So I sat there and I promised myself I will never do this again. I will never cover up. I will never keep these things to myself. There's a saying in the program, we are as sick as our secrets. And I had too many secrets those 5 years. So I went ahead and listed every lie I could remember. At that point, I didn't know that he wasn't a DA, so I would have probably added that to that list.
You told Miss Henry in that lies letter that Jose wanted to buy you a Mercedes and that you wanted to put a deposit down on it, but Jose wouldn't let you because it needed to be in his name. Is that correct?
Yeah, he said he was going to buy a brand new Mercedes. He took my friends to the dealership. He got the guy involved at the car dealership. He wanted to buy a Susan Komen for the Cure thing. And I was fine. I had my little Saturn. My little Saturn was all paid off, but he said, you know, this is something I want to do, and I said, well, that's fine, and we went there, and he test drove it and everything. Yep.
And he didn't buy you that Mercedes?
There was no money to buy anything. I think that was right before his Jeep got repossessed.
And you were just fine with your little car? What kind was it?
I'm sorry?
You were fine with your little car? What was it?
I had a Saturn that I had paid off. I had a minivan, and that was also paid off. That was the last car I had in New York. And before we moved down, I had the Saturn. And when we sold my dad's house in New York, Chuck bought himself a pickup truck. So I believe that those were the two cars that we had, although I know Rachel had probably started doing her driving stuff down here. So I was probably looking at getting something for Rachel too.
Yes, ma'am. Is that marked?
It's not yet.
Yes, ma'am?
I've marked the document that you just looked at as State's Exhibit 72. It's a bill of sale, isn't it?
It is.
And it's from December of 2012.
It is.
So you were already married to Mr. Perez.
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And it's from Capital One Auto Brokers.
It is.
And it's for a white Mercedes.
It's for a 2001 white Mercedes. Yes, it is.
And
With
the
180,000 miles on it.
purchase price was $17,482.78.
That sounds right.
And the purchaser's name was Joanna Madonna.
Yep.
When you told people about Jose cheating on you, you were angry, weren't you?
Yes, I was angry. Yes, I was angry when I found out, confirmed for sure that he was cheating on me.
And you confirmed it for sure when you saw that letter on the internet?
Yes, it was, I knew that it was potentially that it could be spam. I knew that there were things like that, but the fact that this young lady was in Florida and that he had had this up on his Facebook when I got up, that made me think it was for real.
And you were angry and you told people that he was drinking, didn't you?
I think what it was that I was angry that he was lying to people in recovery, because
We're
that's, oh, I'm sorry.
You were angry enough to post on Facebook about old timers drinking.
Yeah, one of the worst things to me is lying in the rooms.
So when you got back to Raleigh from South Carolina and you got Jose into the Jeep and you had the gun and the knife with you, you were angry still, weren't you? You were trying to get rid of him.
No, I was not angry. I was worried how he was going to take it. I was worried about being by myself. I was not angry.
You were ready for your next soul adventure, though, weren't you?
Well, that's a fairly, I was in that little beginning thing with Mr. Richardson, but that had nothing to do with my asking Jose for a divorce. I had been ready to ask Jose for a divorce for a long time.
You had never feared physical harm from Jose before the 15th of June 2013, had you?
Jose had held me down on several occasions while he was trying to have sex with me. He had held me down on several occasions when we had little minor arguments. He would hold me down and leave little bruises, little random little fingerprint-sized bruises, but I wasn't physically afraid of him.
He never hit you.
He never hit me.
He never hit Michelle.
No, he never
He
hit
never
us.
hit Rachel.
He never hit anybody in the house.
He didn't hit Isabel.
Actually, that's not true. I was visited by Child Protective Services when I got to jail. So about 4 days after this incident happened, Child Protective Services came and said, Miss Madonna, we need to follow up on a report that was made at Heritage Elementary School that Isabel's father hit her one morning before school, and she had a big bruise on her leg. And I said, well, the only person with her before school is Jose, who's her stepfather. So yes, CPS came to the jail and saw me at the jail to try to confirm this incident that Isabel had reported that Jose had hit her. Other than that, I had only seen Jose drag Isabel across the floor by her shirt when she was in the middle of a meltdown, which her meltdowns were pretty explosive, so it was very frustrating for everyone. But other than that, I had not seen Jose be really physical with Isabel.
And these meltdowns, she could harm herself.
Isabel, well, it's very common for people with autism to bang their head on the floor, yeah. So sometimes Isabel would bang her head on the floor, and that was one of the things that was most upsetting to us.
And Jose had never hit your dad.
No, Jose would know. Nobody would ever hit my
He-
dad. He'd never hit my dad.
He'd never threatened the safety of you in the past, had he?
Until that day, he had never threatened our safety, although I think all the financial abuse probably threatened our financial safety, but
He didn't physically threaten you, did he?
He threatened me that day, but before then, he had never physically threatened me.
Nor had he, before the 15th of June, ever threatened Michelle?
No,
He
he
hadn't
had never
threatened-
threatened her before that moment, no.
He never threatened Rachel?
No, he never threatened anybody in the house.
Not Isabel, not your dad?
I can't confirm anything about Isabel, like I said, but I never heard him threaten anybody.
He was kind to your pets?
He was a wonderful dog foster, yes, he was.
And before you visited William Lopez on the 15th of June 2013, neither you nor anyone else in your house had a Rampage stiletto knife with a black and red handle, did they?
That's the knife that my nephew gave me.
And the way it got to Raleigh was through you.
It was, yes, it got to Raleigh through me.
And before you went to South Carolina on the 15th of June, there was no .380 Taurus revolver in your home, was there?
Not that I know of.
And you left the 15th of June for South Carolina at 8:45 in the morning, correct?
I went swimming at the Y in Wakefield first, and then when I got out of there, I got on the road. I'm not sure exactly what time that was, but I believe it was between 8 and 9 from the testimony I've heard.
And then you left South Carolina to come back home at 2:38 in the afternoon, is that correct?
That sounds right.
And it took you 4 hours each way.
That's right.
And in the time left that you were in South Carolina, you went to Billy Lopez's house.
I went and saw Billy first. Billy and I had not seen each other. And, that it was his son going through the cancer, and I wanted to just, check with him and be with him for a few minutes before we went to his son's house.
Well, you didn't go directly to his son's house, did you? You went to a pawn shop to try to buy a gun.
He took me to a pawn shop to show me what types of guns you could get for a certain price range and what might be good for a woman who had never had a gun.
And after you visited with Billy and went to the pawn shop, then you went and visited William and Michelle.
That's right. And Lionel, her husband, was there.
And you got a gun and a knife from William.
William let me borrow his gun, and he gave me his knife to protect his cousins. He felt very strongly about being able to do that.
And you didn't say anything about it yesterday, but the reason he felt really strongly about protecting his cousins is that you told him that there had been break-ins on either side of you and across the street at the Schoolhouse Road address. Is that correct?
I had heard that there were break-ins. Jose said that he had confirmed that with people in the neighborhood that there were break-ins. So that was something I was very concerned about.
Now, when you got back to North Carolina, you got Jose into the Jeep with you and decided you were going to tell him you didn't want to be married to him anymore.
Yes.
And you decided that the best way to tell him that was while you were driving around.
Yes. It was a beautiful sunny day. We were in a comfortable area where he knew, and there was no stress.
And you had William's gun and William's knife with you, didn't you?
I believe they were probably still in the back seat.
And you just left them out on the back seat?
I had come in the house and went in the bedroom. I'm not sure. The last time I had seen them, that's where they were.
And you put the gun box in your closet?
I put the gun box in the closet later that night or in the morning. I was going to go back and get the gun for William because that wasn't mine. I wanted to make sure that I returned that to him, so I saved the box for him.
Well, let me ask you this. You early on made a statement to a lawyer that came...
Overruled.
You early on made a statement to a lawyer that you called and who met you on the night that you were arrested, correct? About what had happened.
Yeah, I was working for a criminal defense attorney at the time, and as soon as I found out the cops were at the house, I did call him.
And you made a statement to him and told him what had happened and authorized him to give information to the police about what you had done to Jose that night.
Yes, and I did lie to him. I did not give him all the information either. The first person I told the whole story to was the next day when Mr. Thomas was appointed my lawyer through the court.
So you lied to your first lawyer?
Yes, I
And you
did.
told that lawyer that the gun was at the same place where Jose's body was found?
Yes, I did. I lied to him and told him that the gun was at the same place where Jose was.
You never told that lawyer, even though you might have thought it was important that they find that gun, you didn't tell anybody about anything happening at some church parking lot, did you?
I didn't tell anybody until the next day when I met Mr. Thomas, my public defender.
Now, you say that Mr. Perez, after you told him that you wanted a divorce, faked a heart attack, and you pulled over into the church parking lot and got out when he said that he was having a heart attack, and you were going to go around the car and help him, right?
Yes, I was.
And that instead of a heart attack, that he pulled a gun out and tried to shoot you.
Yes, that's what happened.
And somehow, in trying to shoot you, he managed to shoot himself in the face and the arm.
He pointed the gun at himself. I think I had said this yesterday. He had the gun pointed at himself, and I went to grab it out of his hand, and the gun went off. And so I believe at that point he and I were both holding it.
So you had nothing to fear from Jose and a gun, did you?
I was concerned about the fact that Jose was going to try to kill himself. I didn't have any, at that point I did not believe that he would have really killed me.
And you say that after he, as you say, shot himself in the face and the arm while he was trying to shoot you, that the gun was dropped in the parking lot of the church.
Yeah, before I got in the car, once I got him in the car and I buckled his seatbelt to take him to the hospital, I ran around to my side of the car and I dropped the gun right there. I'm not sure if I dropped it on his side or on my side, but I just left the gun there and got in the car.
And you told us yesterday that you left it in some church parking lot. You're not sure which one, you're not sure where.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with that area. There was like a little lot right next to the church. I looked up, I knew it was a church. It was a Saturday evening, and there were no cars in that parking lot right there, but it's on the way to Rollsville. There's like an intersection, and there's a little mechanic shop there on the left-hand side, and this was right past there on the right-hand side. So there was a little pull-off right there on the main road.
And you didn't go to the mechanic shop to call the 911, did you?
No, I was taking him right to the hospital.
And you were going to take him to the VA.
No, originally I was going to take him to Wake Med because that was the closest one. And by the time he had figured out that they would charge him, he wanted to just go to the VA instead.
He was bleeding pretty profusely at that time, wasn't he?
He was bleeding pretty profusely from his mouth. Yes, he was.
And he'd been shot in the arm as well.
I'm not sure if he was actually shot in the arm or not.
And
I know the gun went off a second time. I'm not exactly sure what happened with that instance.
And he was injured so badly that you could see into the inside of his mouth from where that wound was, couldn't you?
I did not look inside his wound.
You
I
know-
just know that he was bleeding and he was spitting blood on the glove box.
And so he had an argument with you while he had shattered dentures in his mouth and a huge gash in the side of his face about which hospital to go to because he was worried about whether they were going to charge or not.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the dentures until this trial started. I didn't even know anything about the dentures, but he was yelling and he was arguing with me the whole time.
And so you decided to go to the VA.
He asked me to take him to the VA because that's where all his medical records were, and he does not get charged at the VA, so he wanted to go to the VA.
And so from this place where you didn't have any clue where you were, out somewhere and where you didn't recognize anything, where you decided to have this talk with him, and where this shooting occurred at the church parking lot, you somehow managed to get yourself back to 98, get yourself right on the way to the VA.
Oh, no, we lived in Rollsville for over a year, so I knew the way down 98. I knew how to get to from Youngsville to Rollsville. If you ask me names of roads, I can't tell you names of roads. It's a little rural for me. I'm not really familiar with that area, but I know in terms of sense of direction and how to get from one place to the other, I know enough how to get myself back to Rollsville from Youngsville.
But you don't know where that church was.
I believe that I just explained where the church was.
So on your map where it says possibly where this happened, that's not possible anymore? It's definite?
No, I think that between my lawyer and myself, it was very difficult for me to explain exactly. Like I said, I don't know the names of streets and stuff. So when Mr. Thomas went out there to look himself, he was asking me very specific questions, like exactly how far from this and how far, what's the name of that, and I wasn't able to give him any of that information. I don't know the name of the church, I don't know the cross street, so I believe that was the easiest thing for Mr. Thomas was to put down, this is possibly where it happened.
So there's no gun in the car anymore. You put Jose in the car, seatbelt him in, you're heading on 98 to the Durham VA, and he fakes another heart attack.
Yes,
And you believe it again.
absolutely.
So you pull off of 98 and you pull onto Old Bayleaf.
That's right.
And you don't stop at the corner of Old Bayleaf and 98 where there's a house where you could call 911.
I was concerned about getting him out of the car and letting him, he said he had to throw up, so I was just thinking about pulling over so he could throw up, and yeah.
And you had to go 100+ yards down the road for him to throw up?
I don't know how far from the corner we were. I just pulled over.
So you pull over and he gets out of the car, you come around and he pushes you down so that you fall either to your knees or your back. Which one was it?
No, it felt like he punched me or did something right here in my sternum, and that knocked the wind out of me, and that's how I ended up falling back onto the ground.
On your back or on your knees?
I fell down, I believe, on my back.
And at that point he gets out and he's brandishing a knife.
I didn't see him holding the knife. The next thing I realized, my arm was cut.
And which arm was that?
My left arm.
And so you're down on your back. He cut you with a knife.
Yep. That's the only way I can explain how I was bleeding.
And he did what then? He put his arm across your
He
chest.
got on top of me, and he was suffocating me with his weight. It was as if somebody were standing on top of my lungs. That's how it felt like I was drowning.
Yesterday you said he put his arm across your neck or your chest. Is that right?
He put his arm across me here, where it was cutting off the air, like right here at the top of my lungs. I couldn't breathe. That's where he was applying the pressure.
And then you realized that the knife was on the ground and you picked it up with your left hand and you started stabbing him.
I was struggling for breath for, I would like to say it was probably a couple of minutes. I had some very bizarre thoughts going through my head at that point, and I had thanked God at that point for my life and asked him to take care of my kids. I don't know how long I was struggling for breath, but by the time I finally realized there was a knife there, yeah, I got the knife and started swinging at him.
And at that point, he didn't have any weapons in his hands, did he?
I don't know. I was just trying to get him off me and just be able to get out of there.
You didn't see any weapons, did you?
I did not see any weapons when I left, no.
You didn't see any weapons while he was leaning across you other than the one on the ground to your left?
I was not looking for any weapons. I was trying to get air. I was trying to breathe.
You're 5'10",
Yep.
and you weigh about 170.
Now I weigh 160.
At the time, you weighed around 170, didn't you?
That sounds right.
And he was 5'9",
Yep.
and weighed about 190.
I believe so.
And so you were struggling and struggling with him and took the knife into your hand, and you couldn't get out from underneath this man, so you had to keep stabbing him.
I just kept stabbing him until I felt like I could get up.
And did you stab him first in the face next to his mouth?
I don't remember stabbing him in the face, no. I believe that the injury to his face is where the gun had gone off, and that was from the gun. I do not believe I stabbed him in the face.
You didn't see the picture of the stab wound right next to his lip and the testimony of the ME?
I believe that what is on his face was from the gunshot. That's the only thing that I believe that that's where he was shot.
And you didn't hear the testimony and see the photographs from the ME that showed 2 stab wounds on the side of his face?
I didn't see the photographs. She was still sitting over here.
Overall, she can answer.
I don't recall seeing any stab wounds on his face.
And he'd already had that gaping wound on the side of his face where you said he shot himself. When did you slash him on the other side of his neck?
I don't know in what order I stabbed at Jose. I don't know where I stabbed at him first. I'm not sure what order any of that took place in.
So you stabbed him and you stabbed him until you felt like you could get out from under him.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you scooted out from under him
I did.
and he was face down on the ground.
Yes, he was.
And the whole time that he was on top of you, he was bleeding profusely, wasn't he?
I'm not sure if he was still bleeding at that point from his mouth or not. I'm not aware of that.
You saw what his shirt looked like, didn't you?
I am not sure if I have ever seen pictures of that part. There was a couple of pictures that I saw early on when Mr. Thomas first got the pictures, and I don't believe that I have seen all the pictures, although I do know from hearing the testimony, I do know how much blood he lost.
I'm not talking about the pictures. You were there. You saw his shirt, didn't you?
I don't remember seeing his shirt. I just remember getting out from under him and starting to head towards the car.
And you say that after you stabbed him, and the ME said it was, I think, 12 times, or it added up to 12 stab wounds, you still thought he was going to get up off the ground and chase after you.
Yes, I did.
So you took off his shoes and you threw him into the woods.
That's right.
And you threw the knife that you'd used to stab him all those times, and you threw it into the woods.
Yep,
And you went home
that's right.
and you changed your clothes.
I didn't change my clothes until later on.
So when you got home, Rachel was in the kitchen, right?
I believe that I got home and I went into the bedroom to get my phone, and when I came out, Rachel was in the kitchen.
And Rachel said that she saw you come in through the garage door. Was she not right?
I don't remember where I was at.
And Rachel also said you were wearing a brown tank top and some shorts.
I had changed later. Later on, I was wearing a brown tank top and shorts. So
What Rachel said was that when you came in from the garage into the kitchen where she was getting something to eat at around 9 o'clock that night, that you were wearing a brown tank top or cami and shorts. Was that not true? Did your daughter lie?
I'm not sure what point she's talking about. She saw me at some point with that outfit on. Yeah, that's what I was wearing later on. So I'm not sure if that was when I first got there or not. I'm not sure when she saw me.
What your daughter said is my question. What your daughter said was that when you came into the house from the garage at 9 o'clock that night, you were wearing a brown tank top and shorts. Is that true or not true?
That's what she said.
Was it true?
What I'm saying is that at some point that evening, I was wearing a tank top and shorts. That's usually what I sleep in, so I'm not sure at what point she's referring to. I don't remember what I was wearing at the moment I saw Rachel. I know that when I got home from this incident, I was wearing my black t-shirt and those blue shorts.
So when your daughter Rachel testified here in court last week and said that when you came from the garage into the kitchen and she was already there and you were wearing a brown tank top or camisole and shorts, your daughter was not correct?
Well, again, what I'm saying is I changed at some point in the evening. I didn't change as soon as I got home. I changed at some point in the evening. So, I mean, I can't tell you if my daughter, I mean, I'm not saying my daughter lied, but at some point I was wearing a tank top and a pair of shorts.
Your daughter's testimony was that when you came in from the garage into the kitchen, you were wearing a brown tank top and shorts. Was your daughter correct?
Yes, so at some point I was going back and forth from the garage to the kitchen wearing the shorts and the tank top. That wasn't immediately when I got home. That would have been later on in the evening after I had changed.
So your daughter was lying when she was on the stand when she said that she heard you pull into the garage door opened, you walked in the kitchen, and you were wearing a brown tank top and shorts.
I can only think that maybe this has been such a traumatic experience. Maybe she is not remembering correctly exactly what time she saw me in my shorts. I can't answer for Rachel, but I cannot imagine that Rachel would ever knowingly lie to anyone, especially in a courtroom.
And so it's likely, in fact, that she was correct if she would never lie in a courtroom especially.
Well, like I've said, I did change eventually, and I did put on my sleeping attire, which was a pair of shorts and a camisole, so I'm sure at some point she did see me going in and out of the garage with that outfit on.
If you could just answer the question one time.
I'm sorry, what question am I not
You
answering?
are not answering the question, did your daughter tell the truth when she said on the stand, under oath?
There's no way to know what she's already explained this multiple times.
Sustained as to the question, you may ask something again.
Did your daughter, you heard your daughter testify, right?
I did hear my daughter testify.
And you said that she wouldn't lie.
I do not think Rachel would lie, ever.
And her testimony was that when you came into the kitchen from the garage, when you first got home, she was in the kitchen getting something to eat, and you were wearing a brown camisole or tank top and shorts.
She's mistaken. When I came in from this incident, I was wearing the clothes that you saw in that picture. I was wearing the clothes that you have seen in this courtroom. When I got back from seeing Jose, I was wearing the blue shorts and the black t-shirt. So if Rachel remembers me wearing my night clothes, which was a shorts and a tank top, I'm not saying that she lied. I'm just saying that that's what I was wearing later on.
And so you're saying that you were wearing that black t-shirt and those jean shorts that you used when you killed Jose?
I was still in the same outfit that I went out in.
And Rachel noticed a couple little scratches on your arms, but she didn't notice any blood on you?
I believe Rachel's testimony said that I was bleeding when she came in, and that's why she asked me to call the cops. I don't think she would have asked me to call the cops if I hadn't been bleeding. I think that that's what alarmed her, was that I was bleeding, and I believe that that's what her testimony said.
And your testimony was just a few minutes ago that Jose had a big, huge wound on the side of his face, that he got on top of you, he was leaning over you, and you stabbed him and stabbed him and stabbed him and slashed him, and there was no blood on you?
He was laying directly on top of me at the point when I started swinging at him. And so that's what I can tell you.
No blood in your hair?
I'm not sure if there was blood in my hair. I took a shower. I knew I had blood all over my arms and my face and my neck. And I went in and took a shower because it had started drying.
And Rachel, when she testified, said that she saw some scratches on your arm, on one arm. She didn't testify about blood on your face or blood on your neck or blood on your chest or blood anywhere else, did she?
I did not hear her say anything about blood on my face or anything.
So you came home, you changed your clothes, you went back out in the garage and you started cleaning up the Jeep.
I cleaned the Jeep a little bit first, and then I went inside. I was getting overheated. I was physically and mentally just exhausted at this point. And yes, I went back out and continued to wipe off the blood off the dashboard and the glove compartment.
And you bagged up Jose's medicines.
The next day, I started bagging up all the stuff that I thought that he would need.
And you bagged up his IDs.
I threw everything. I'm not sure the IDs were in the same bag. I don't remember what bag the IDs were in. I know that eventually I threw everything into the garbage.
His VA cards, his debit cards, his credit cards, his glasses, his family photos, his AA pamphlets, his Bible.
I threw
It all out, didn't you?
Yes, I threw everything into the garbage. Everything that was in his nightstand, I threw it all out.
Now, you told people that he had a suitcase, that you'd packed up his suitcase with his clothes so he could go to his sponsor and go down to Florida, right?
That was a lie. Yes, I told everybody that lie.
And what you were doing the night that the police showed up at your house is you were on a date with Chad.
That wasn't a date. We were sitting in his living room, but I was at Mr. Richardson's house. Yes, I was.
And you weren't at a meeting.
No, I had lied and said I was going to a meeting, and I sat there in Mr. Richardson's living room while he was watching golf. And I'm sorry.
When you returned to your house, you'd already called a lawyer.
I called the young lady who I was working for. I was cleaning their house once a week, and I was cleaning their law office on
Question
Fridays.
was,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you call a lawyer?
Objection, Your Honor. You have the right to call her.
She may answer.
I called the young lady who I worked for, and her husband was a lawyer. Yes, I called Catherine.
And you got to the house, and when you got to the house, you knew that Jose Perez was mortally wounded, didn't you?
At that point, I had started to suspect that he hadn't made it to Fred's.
You didn't suspect it when you left him with both sides of his neck slashed and 12 stab wounds in his body?
No, I thought he was getting up and going to Fred's, and I started looking for my restraining order information and my separation agreement. I thought he was going to be fine.
So you lied to the police when you got to your house?
I lied to the police, I lied to my children, I lied to everybody.
You lied to Chad and Chuck and Danica and Lynn and Paul Collins and
Yes.
Vanessa Gant.
Yes,
You
I
lied to William and Billy and Michelle
did not lie to William and Billy and Michelle about anything.
about break-ins.
Nope. I had been told there were break-ins in the area, and Jose had confirmed with neighbors in the area that there had been break-ins. So I did not lie about that either.
And so you just thought you'd stick with your story about going to Florida.
I had told myself that he was going to Florida, and that is absolutely what I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe I was going to have an amicable divorce with Jose, just like I have with Chuck, and that I would be able to bring Isabel down to see him once a year down in Florida. And that's what I wanted. I wanted my friend, but I didn't want to be his wife anymore.
And by August the 15th of August of 2015, you had already written to a number of people, businesses, clergy, domestic violence publishing houses, and written out your whole story about what had happened and your whole life story about your terrible childhood and young adulthood. Is that correct?
My feeling is if I can help even one woman to not end up in my situation, if one woman listens when her friends say your husband is unstable, do not approach him by yourself. If one woman ends up not in my situation, I will write anything that I can do just to help one woman.
And so you were in the process of writing your autobiography of your 5 years with Jose, correct?
I will let anybody read my story, just like I have read so many stories in jail about other domestic violence situations that ended like this. I will let anybody read my story if it can help them.
So when you were writing to all these domestic violence businesses and publishing houses, you were trying to get them to publish your book so you could make some money, and you were also trying to get speaking engagements so you could get paid for telling this story about Jose, correct?
I will speak to any group of any person where it can help them to not end up in this situation. And I think when I was talking about publishing anything, I was very clear and said 50% of that will have to go to a domestic violence organization. And I would love for the rest to be able to go to my children if, God forbid, things don't work out well for me here.
And you wrote to many of those businesses and organizations, and you offered every last one of them 50% of the profits, didn't you?
I do not recall. I believe there was one person that I wrote to. So I don't think that there were numerous. I mean, again, I would have to look at them. But every time I did say that this money half of it has to go to domestic violence awareness. And I don't think I said I will go speak for a fee. I will speak anywhere. I had volunteered with Interact for a little bit. I knew what Interact was. And so my understanding is Interact has people that go to high schools and talk about domestic violence. I wanted to be able to say that just because someone doesn't leave bruises on your body does not mean that it's not abuse.
So in August of 2015, you wrote to Father Richard Veras.
I wrote to Father Richard Veras, yes. I wrote to him about all the things that I had done that I thought made me not a good Catholic before this situation happened. Including in that was the abortion situation, which I feel that as a Catholic woman, that has plagued me for 15 years. And yes, I wrote to that priest, and yes.
So you wrote to him that, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been over 20 years since my last confession. I almost cheated on my husband. I hit my daughters, each of them, one time. I screamed at them a lot. I even cursed at them. I lost my patience with my elderly dad more than once, and I may have even shown that in my actions. I covered many horrible lies and behaviors for my husband, being too proud to let others know of the things he'd done because of what they would think of me. I gave in to my gluttony and sought comfort in food and my eating disorder. I lied to everyone around me. I lied to my children when I didn't want to drive them places, making up excuses for why I couldn't help them. I betrayed my daughter's confidence when they told me private things. I left work early and cut a lot of corners at my job. I lied to my friends about money. I had sex when I was unmarried. I even got pregnant twice and had 2 abortions. I took a bottle of hand lotion that someone left in the common area here. I lied to fellow inmates. I lied when women have tried to beg food for me. I could go on, but I feel like those are the most horrible sins I could have told you about. Is that right?
That is 20 years worth of sins that I had not gone to confession about, excuse me, and I have been very fortunate to learn a whole lot about the Catholic Church since I've been in jail. And so yes, I listed all my sins for Father Richard Veras.
And you already had your story out there about having killed Jose, because you've written dozens of letters to people in businesses, domestic violence organizations, and friends and relatives, and you didn't once mention in your confession that you'd killed your husband.
Everybody was well aware of what had happened in that situation. Everybody knew that I was already charged with a crime. So, yeah, everybody already knew. Anybody that I wrote to already knew that I had been charged with this crime. And I had been told by my lawyer on so many occasions till he was blue in the face, they are going to copy everything you write. So I tried to be respectful of that and not write any details about my case. Apparently, I did not do a good job of that, and I apologize to my lawyer again for the 5,000 pages of letters that they had to read.
So Father Veras wasn't a local guy, was he?
Father Veras, I had found his name in a magazine called the Magnificat. He is a priest up in Poughkeepsie, New York. And when I found that he was from the same area that I was, I felt like I could write to him, have a little bit of a connection because I knew that area. So I have never actually met Father Veras. I was visited by a priest from the Catholic Diocese of Raleigh, Father Kerber, but he's been extremely busy with a new parish. So I did write to somebody.
The
I'm
question
sorry.
was, Father Veras wasn't a local priest, was he?
No, Father Veras is an author.
He's from Poughkeepsie, New York.
He is an author from Poughkeepsie, New York, who writes for an
The
international...
question was, he's from Poughkeepsie, New York. Is that correct or not correct?
Yes, he is from Poughkeepsie, New York.
Okay, so he wasn't around to watch the local television coverage and read the local newspapers about what was going on with you,
Father Veras knew why I was in jail.
because you told him?
No, because it was all over the news up there in Westchester.
And knowing that you were arrested for the murder of your husband, you still didn't feel like you could say anything to Father Veras and ask for his absolution about killing Jose. Is that correct?
My lawyer had instructed me, do not talk about what happened. So anything that I talked about, I did it in the most general way that I possibly could while still being able to be honest with people.
You wrote to Paul Collins on the 15th of August. In fact, you wrote him 2 letters on that date, and you asked him on that date, or told him on that date, window with a little flower written next to it. I go to the window at the top of every hour, 8, 9, 10, then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I stay a few minutes, I look at the lights in the sky, I look at the clouds. Maybe I'll see you there with Friday. I'll look for you.
Paul is someone who lives downtown, and this is somebody who has been so completely supportive of my family and myself for the past 2 years. Paul would come walk downtown with his dog. He would walk down past my window when I was in jail, and he would wave up to me at the window, and that was a wonderful thing.
You also wrote to him in that same letter, August 15th of 2013, the picture of me in the pool that was taken last year in Florida. I was looking at the camera and imagining I was looking at you. It was right before we were supposed to go to New York together.
Yep, Paul was a friend of mine, and I had a little bit of a crush on him for a little while. I'm not embarrassed to admit that. Paul is a wonderful man, and I hope that he finds someone to make him happy.
You also told him that you needed a job, and you didn't think that since you still have no convictions of any kind ever on your record, that you're hoping to start working as quickly as possible.
My only convictions had been when I was 16, living on the streets. I had been shoplifting, and I got arrested twice for shoplifting about the age of 16 or 17. It was considered youthful offender status, and those were taken off my record. I was arrested one other time when I was 30 years old. Somebody I was dating had given me a money order and asked me to cash it for him. I cashed the money order, not having verified where it had come from, and it turns out it had been stolen. So I got charged for that. And I complied with everything that the police had asked me to do. And I believe I was 30 when that happened. Other than that, I have never been convicted of anything in my life. And I like to think that I've been a law-abiding citizen the entire time I've been sober, except for that one incident with the money order.
On the 21st of August 2013, you wrote to Paul again and said, I'll be at the window tonight at 9. Maybe you'll be there. Is that right?
Paul and I had a standing appointment where he was going to try to come by every night at 9 o'clock, and I was going to look out the window and wave if I saw him outside on the corner.
And in October of 2013, you wrote to Paul and said, I've been thinking about this recently. I never met my soulmate. Excuse me. I've been in and out of love enough times to write some great songs, LOL. I've shed about 1 billion gallons of tears for each time my heart has been pulverized, but I've never had a grown-up, honest, trust-based, mentally, intellectually, spiritually connected, adult, monogamous, fun, playful, heartfelt relationship, right? You wrote that?
That's a long time ago, and that was about 4 months after this incident. I'm not quite sure. I mean, you just read that to me, so it sounds like I wrote that. I can't remember exactly what was going on at that point, but that was right after Paul first made contact with me, after I was in jail.
Then you wrote him a poem in that same letter, didn't you?
It's quite possible. I have written a lot of poems. I started writing poetry when I was 7 years old. So it's possible that I wrote a poem and sent it to Paul.
He sang to me with lyrics only meant for me, and the words spoke straight to my heart. He played for me, his lips never moving, only his hands, and the melody went straight to my heart. He looked at me, and when the shyness overcame him, he looked away. But when he looked at me, he saw straight into my heart. He thought of me. It was the exact moment I thought of him. And then in parentheses, no, I can't prove it, but his thoughts have come straight to my heart. You wrote that?
That sounds like the type of poetry that I've been writing for a long time.
And on the 2nd of May, 2014, you wrote to Paul, told him to write you whether he was sober or whether he was buzzed, that you needed to have good talks with him and you wanted to take dance lessons with him when you got out of jail.
Yep, Paul is one of the men that I trust most in this world, and I have told him, and he knows this, that I do not believe I would have survived these past 2 years without the help that he's given to me and my family. He has become a very trusted, wonderful wonderful part of my life, and I'm very grateful for that relationship.
And you wrote him on January 8th, 2015, this year and a half has taught me how to develop boundaries and how to break bad habits.
I like to think that I have learned to develop boundaries and break bad habits, yes.
That's the same letter where you wrote him about wanting to think about what kind of blanket he was under while you were under the scratchy blanket that you were under.
Okay.
Is that true? Did you write that?
I'm not sure, but if that's what's in that letter, then yes.
And that's the same letter that you wrote to him about wanting to hold hands with him?
I'm not, yes, I believe that's in the same letter that you read to me, yes.
So, and you concluded, so first date, holding hands and comforters and quilts, that's what I covered today. Guess I'm telling you things about me just so you know me more. Love you. Come see me. Joanna.
I love Paul. Paul and I are, he's one of my best friends. So yes, I do love Paul. And if we ever have a first date, that would be great. On the other hand, if he finds some wonderful woman who makes him happy, that would make me happy also.
So on April 30th, you wrote to Paul and you said, I was thinking, what else?
At this point, we're not talking anything about the death of Jose Perez at this point.
I'll let it continue. Let's go.
You wrote to Paul on the 30th of April of this year, I was thinking what else I can promise Paul as an incentive to bond me out right now instead of waiting for a bond reduction. I think the only other thing I have to offer you is companionship. I'm not calling this sex. I'm not offering carnal satisfaction, but my warmth. You can call on me any hour, day or night, and tell me you need to lay down, and I'll know what you mean. Spooning, cuddling, whatever you need, I'll keep you company, sing you and rock you to sleep. I'm soft and I'm soothing because I'm at peace, I'm happy, I'm content. You wrote that?
Yes, I did.
And you also wrote about wanting to spend time with him, that you said it's not about worth or dollar values, it's about time together, time to lend you a hand, though I know you are incredibly self-sufficient, independent. We aren't meant to navigate this world on our own. It's also possible that we might be able to get a private lawyer.
I'm sorry? A private lawyer for what? I'm sorry, I don't remember that part.
It is also possible that we, in quotation marks, might be able to pay a private lawyer. I think we'd be more likely to get the attention we need.
Stay.
You wrote it, didn't you?
Yeah, we just had up there.
Sustain. Get the next question.
Now, on the 28th of June 2015, you wrote another letter to Paul, and you started it out, "My Paul," in Italian, that's Paolo mio. Molto bene, eh? Correct?
That's right. I have studied Italian and I love Italian and I cannot wait to become fluent in Italian.
And you wrote him a lengthy letter telling him a lot of things about yourself.
Well, like I said, Paul and I have been corresponding now for 2 years, and I have gotten to the point where I am more comfortable definitely talking about more information about myself.
So you started off and you told him, "I snore. I have stretch marks on my stomach. I'm self-conscious about them. If you try to touch my belly, I may swat your hand away while simultaneously sucking in my gut. My favorite cars are Cadillacs, but I confess I love two-door Jeeps. I can't grow anything. I don't like to clean. I have greedily lusted after a food processor and a mixer." And you go on and on to tell him many things, one of which was that your dad only hit you once because you lied. "He told me that he only hit me because I lied. I never forgot that, and no matter what I tried to always tell the truth after that lesson. He actually punched me on the arm. Dad was strong as a bull, and my arm stayed bruised for a month. God has endowed me with excellent shoulders for rowing. I currently weigh 170 pounds, but want to be 165. I love to exercise, especially walking, swimming, Pilates, and yoga. I could use some gentle massage once a week. I believe in good manners, common courtesy, respect, modesty, decorum. I believe we should earn our own way. I was faithful to 3 husbands. I never cheated. Although I am a natural flirt." You also indicated that you said you'd been thinking of me today. I wonder if maybe you think of me at night when it's quiet and you're warm and comfortable, when no one and nothing needs your attention. It's probably the same time I think of you.
There's not a lot to do in jail other than write letters and think about the people that you love. And I pray that nobody ever has to go.
And the last one I want to ask you about was from July 15th of this year. You wrote in what you characterized as an eHarmony profile for yourself.
Yep. I gave him a lot of information about myself.
And then you also told him, "For me, ideally, you and I can be side by side. No one on a pedestal, give and take, like tossing a beach ball back and forth, side by side. On a couch, my place or yours, pillow talking, my place or yours, all kinds of good stuff, side by side."
That sounds like something I would write.
And then you told him at some point you realized you're going to have to be naked in front of somebody again, right?
Oh, yes. I was concerned that I had lost a lot of weight and my body parts were sagging. And there was a woman who volunteered at the jail to check out my body for me and make sure that it would still be not horribly unattractive if at some point somebody did see me naked. And so I, at some point, lifted up my shirt and showed her what I looked like, and she approved. She said I would not kick you out of bed.
And you also included a long list of things that you prefer one over the other. For example, beach over pool, seafood over meat, crunchy over smooth, Paul over other guys.
Is that how I phrased that?
I prefer, would you like me to read you the whole list?
No, the one about Paul. Can you just read me what I wrote about Paul?
Paul over other guys.
Oh. ...
smiley face.
Yes. I am not talking to anybody with that much intimacy at this point in my life other than Paul. Paul is the only man that I trust at this point in my life like that.
That's fine, we'll take a morning recess, because I know you're working a full report of your death. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our morning recess at this point. During this time, it is your duty not to talk among yourselves about this case. It's your duty not to talk to the parties, the witnesses, or the lawyers about anything at all. It's your further duty not to talk to anyone else, to allow anyone else to talk with you, to say anything in your presence about this case. If you overhear, see, get any information all about this trial, let the sheriff know about it when you come in. Don't do any individual research or investigation on your own about any issue touching on this trial. Stay away from your smartphones. And do not form or express any opinion about this case during this time. That, while everyone else will remain seated, I'm going to excuse the 13 of you and ask that you return and assemble in the jury room at 11:15 this morning, if that's your excuse.